Welcome to More Patients, More Impact, More Income, the podcast for real holistic medical practitioners who want to grow their high-impact, high-income practice without selling out. And now, here's your host, Chris Axelrad.
You're listening to More Patients, More Impact, More Income. Today, we have something a little different for you, and it's just too good to limit to one episode. Here's Chris with part one of the series.
Today, what I wanted to do was take a minute to interview one of our awesome clients and who is now actually the accountability coach in the program, Montserrat Gonzales. How are you, Montserrat?
Good, thanks.
Awesome. So let me give you a little backstory on Montserrat really quick and how she came into War Room. I'll let you tell that part of the story, but I just want to say this.
Okay.
That Montserrat, the second she came into the program, was super, she just immediately started focusing on helping other people. She immediately was cheering people on with their wins. And when people were coming in, the thing about our group is that, you know, it's a safe space for business owners to really talk about business owner stuff. And if you own a clinic, whether I see myself primarily as a healer, as a practitioner. Don't get me wrong. I was just talking about this right before we went live, that I hate marketing. People think I love marketing. I hate it. That's the reason that I've studied it so much, is so that I can just do it once and do it right and not keep struggling with it, and then put it on, autopilot, so to speak, by just getting ads running and things like that, so that I can focus on taking the part that I love, which is clinic. And then not only can I focus on clinic, but I have a ton of patients all the time and a bunch of new patients coming in all the time, never worrying about whether we're going to have new patients. But I hate going to networking meetings. I'm not a schmoozer. I'm not one of these people who likes to go to like Chamber of Commerce events and all that kind of stuff. I mean, just, I just like to be in clinic with patients or at home working on stuff, because I'm like a creative kind of artist kind of person. So I just want to dispel that myth if anybody thinks that. But the one thing I wanted to say is that regardless of whether, what your focus is, whether you're really wanting to be like in clinic seeing patients, or whether you want to be more of like a CEO type practitioner where you're overseeing a lot of people in your practice, you own a business. Okay. That's what it boils down to. And the sooner we wake up and really show up with that full awareness and acceptance that, yeah, this is a business. Business doesn't mean you have to sell out your authentic purpose. Business doesn't mean that you have to make compromises on your values. Business does mean that you have to have a structure, you have to have discipline, you have to have focus, and you have to have the ability to let people know you exist and bring them into your system, your business, so that you can deliver the product, which in our case is expertise, guidance, and helping people accelerate their path to feeling better. So on that note, when Montserrat came into our group, and we have an amazing group, man, there's like, how many people are in there now, Montserrat? It's like a little over 100, right?
I think so, yeah.
We've got about 100 people in there. And people are pretty active. They're posting their wins. But here's the key. Everybody, we love and we all celebrate people's wins. Like I just saw 2 posts today, just this morning. One post is someone that is up in Montreal. Actually, 2 Montreal posts. So one Montreal post of somebody who like is talking about how they really feel like they've arrived at like knowing their balance between, being a teacher and being a clinician, and how they're just really now finally starting to fully embrace both those things and kick ass in both those things. And their practice is now full all the time. They're teaching and they're having a blast doing it. They're not getting burned out. I mean, it's just amazing. These are business owner problems that a lot of people don't realize they even have. And then another person from Montreal posted that her goal coming into the program was 40 patients a week. She's already pushed past that. She's almost up to 50 patients a week. And she's only been in the program for about 4 months, and I'm really proud of her too. We celebrate those together, but there's also a lot of real like soul searching going on in there as well. And there's also a lot of people who are dealing with some real serious, whether it's problems with employees or, problems where they're really trying to shift their practice into a more, a certain frame, whereas they were at first maybe doing more of what I call commoditized version of what we do. Now they're wanting to push more of an expert positioning, and making that shift can be challenging, can be scary, and at times downright depressing, because sometimes you don't get the results you're looking for right off the bat, and you've got to have a community and a team behind you. It's really hard to do that stuff alone. It's really hard to do that stuff isolated. So we have an amazing group, and Montserrat jumped right in, not only saying awesome job to everyone who was having wins, but also really being encouraging, kind, and thoughtful, helping people who were struggling. So we have this annual event called the Summit, and actually it's coming up this June. We'll be posting about that and running ads and talking about it, but it's an event where a lot of the War Room people, my program, they come. And then also it's open to the public. People can buy tickets. And we just really get into high level, very high impact marketing and business strategies for acupuncturists and other holistic practitioners. And it's always a great community vibe and all that. And then we take the War Room people out to dinner on Saturday night. The people who are in the program, we take them out to a really nice dinner. It's so much fun. It's like family, right, Montserrat?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like family, and we give awards out. So when Montserrat first joined, you remember the awards you got at the summit?
Yeah, best cheerleader.
Best cheerleader. And we gave her some pom-poms, and I mean, she just like went right to it. But the thing is, the reason that we gave her that award, and this was before we ever brought her in as an accountability coach, the reason we gave her that award is because already she was the cheerleader for the whole group. I mean, she was there really just helping people, helping people keep, you have like, I think of like, what's the Australian Shepherd, right? The herders, the dogs that are like herders. If you think of people like dogs, I mean, you really can get a lot of insight into our personalities. And there, Montserrat's kind of that one that's kind of like going around the edges of the herd, and when people start to drift away, she's like, yo, hey, just go back over here. It's all good, And so right, the reason you're laughing is because it's accurate, right?
Yeah. I'm like, is everybody okay? Okay.
Yeah. And then so she's already like that. And so when I was finally getting to the point where the program grew, and I'm like, look, I can't just do all the coaching myself anymore, and for people to get the value that they're expecting, I'm going to need help. Who did I think of? Montserrat. And she has just crushed it, and I'm so proud of her. Now she's in my inner circle, which is kind of the next level up from this program. It's a smaller, more intimate group of people who are really kind of wanting to hit that next level or are hitting that next level. So we get to talk every single week, right? Yeah, and so this past week we got a great inner circle like meeting with. There's about 7 or 8 people on the call, and Montserrat was sharing some things, and so I just thought, man, this is something a lot of people need to hear, because this has been the journey that Montserrat's gone through. I think is very common for people who are really kind of making the transition from what I would say is feeling like they, deferential and sort of like feeling like they need to be part of someone else's thing to really creating their own thing. Not only that, but now Montserrat's going on vacation for 2 weeks or for a week, right?
Not yet 2 weeks, but soon.
Yeah.
She's
going on vacation for a week, and you're like chilling. I don't even sense any like nervousness or like anything.
About leaving? No.
No.
No. Mm-mm.
If you're ready to fill your practice and keep it full without the stress and overwhelm, then get instant access to your free autopilot patient attraction playbook. Now at www.highimpactpracticesystems.com/autopilot.
So Montserrat, let's just kind of what were we talking about on Thursday or Tuesday that stood out to you about your journey up to this point? Do you remember?
I think it had to do with, and I might not say it the same, but I was having it's almost like I feel more mature in the whole situation of being a business owner and not just taking myself seriously, but like that it's okay for me to be seen and put myself out there. Something has just clicked where some of the fears I was carrying have just started to fall away. And a lot of that is just from the systems. So, being really systematic with a patient and seeing what can be done if you really pace them properly and give them time to come around to feeling better instead of assuming you could do it all in one time or one session, and being able to communicate through the process and not just, not just sort of throw it out there arbitrarily. Something has clicked that it's kind of like, it's all like that. Like how you manage the pace of the business, how you manage the marketing. And it took me time. It was like I wanted to be taken seriously, and at the same time I was afraid to. I don't know if it was because of consequence, like what if I made a mistake, or I didn't want to let people down if I told them I could help. And so a lot of that has also fallen away. And I definitely realized when I worked at the chiropractor that I had positioned myself as like a second tier practitioner just by being in that office, because I wasn't the alpha. I was like the employee. So if I had someone who, for example, like sometimes I would refer my patients and I would talk to them, about their issues and stuff. And then by the time they went to see the chiropractor and came back to me, I was no longer in charge. And I was always like, dang, like, why does this keep happening? So the best way I can put it towards is that there's almost like a maturity that's happening quicker than I expected. And it brings a sense of calm because you're just like, okay, this is, you just do the next thing and the next thing. And I have a tendency to future pace way too far. So there's been this like reining in of just looking at the next thing I have to do and putting my energy in that. And I think I told you when I joined War Room, you had done a free training where you talked about going in each room. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the doors. I know that analogy really got you, right? Didn't it?
Yeah, I was just like, dang it. Because I'm a creative in the sense that I'm a kind of a mechanical person, and I see a big picture and I kind of see all the moving parts at once and I don't know what to do. And the training, just so people know, it was like, you're in a room and that's the only thing that exists and the only thing you're working on. And then you have to like figure out when it's time to leave that room and go into the next room. Right. But you don't necessarily look ahead or behind, you just stay in that room. And it was like, oh, so.
Yeah, it's and it's an analogy I've used a lot with my patients since I focus on fertility, and I try to help them. I'm like, look, we're just gonna find the key to get into the next room, right?
Yes.
And that could be the baby room. That could be the room where you get pregnant. And if it's not, then when we get there, we'll go ahead and start looking for the next key.
Right.
But we're not going to look for all the keys at once, right?
Yes.
Because we'll spend all day in this one room looking for every damn key, and we're never going to like actually get into the next room, right? And so, yeah, that really, I think, resonated with you. And I think what you're speaking to is the fact that systems, being systematic in our business, is what contains that overwhelm, and it's what. Because I think a lot of times what we don't realize is that when we're overwhelmed, we're leaking a tremendous amount of energy. Yeah. And I was just thinking about this yesterday. It's funny how like thoughts pop into my head and then they seem so appropriate for whatever I'm doing the next day or that day, like the training or patient comes in and it's like, oh yeah, I was just thinking about that this morning and it's exactly what you need to hear. But thinking about this yesterday, and I was thinking, what's the difference between people who are just next level and people who aren't? And what I mean by next level is, I think of, in athletics, it's very easy to see, right?
Yeah.
You have like the Michael Jordans or the LeBron James, and then you have the guys who are probably just as strong and athletic and tall, but just can't put it all together. Like like a LeBron James or Michael Jordan can. And I'm like, if someone asked me like, what's the one thing, it would be focus, the ability to focus and to be in the moment. I mean, the more that we're able to be in the moment and be focused, then the more we can focus and make the right decisions in that moment, which then leads to the next moment, right? And we kind of get out of that habit of, like you said, thinking, because you mentioned the term future pace. Future pace is a way of talking about, and we talk about this a lot in War Room, that the process of marketing, really, in period, the process of marketing, and then that, what people don't understand is when we're marketing, that's the external message that is hopefully, if you're doing it right, telling a story to your patient about themselves and about their journey, okay, and how you are a part of that journey. And the future pacing means that you're giving them an idea and a vision in their mind of what it's like to start working with you, right? But that's all you're doing. That's all you're doing. I mean, you also want to kind of talk to them and give them the story about what it's going to look like when they're finished working with you. But then it's like, what's the next step? That's it. Yeah. Next step. And you get them to take those next steps, and then they show up in your office. And then once they're in your office, we have a whole process internally of next stepping them and future pacing them so that they're constantly able to see what's next and just keep moving forward through their process. Talk about that in terms of, how you've been able to, like, just give us a concrete example of something that was giving you a lot of trouble before from a business owner standpoint or from dealing with patients, where can you think of like an experience or some type of moment where you started to like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to see how this is happening?
I think you had mentioned like, what prompted me to join. And what was happening was like, I live in St. Louis. So I was thinking I'd move here and live near my dad. And when I got here, like, it's never felt like home. But what was happening is I was starting to grow faster than I don't know. It wasn't intentional, I guess you could say. All I could do was work because I was having a hard time. And so suddenly I had this thing that I needed to sort of take care of, and I didn't know what to do with it. And so
the thing being
the business, my patients, like these people coming to me thinking I knew how to help them. And like, I would there was like parts of me that were mature in the room, I could really be present. But there were parts of me that were very immature. Like as soon as I stepped out, I would doubt myself, beat myself up. And so there was the progression of realizing that even though I don't want to be like half committed or something, because I'm also really loyal. You were talking about the dog metaphor. I think I'm a dog in the Chinese astrology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was really worried about like, well, if I do commit to a business, what if I move and blah, 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 blah. I was just coming up with all these what if scenarios. And it was like, but I had to deal with what was right there in front of me. So I could see it as an opportunity, or I could see it as like a detriment, I guess, to like, it's deciding for me that I'm going to stay here or whatever. So there was this realization of perception, I guess, with problems with like what the next step is without like trying to plan everything all at once. And so what started to happen was like, you would get to that and you would do that, and then you would know the next thing to do. And so it has informed the whole process that when I've been in War Room, deciding to, okay, we're going to just open a practice and see how it goes. And then that's going well. And then, so it took away this panic that I felt about what if this is the wrong decision? And I don't know if that answers your question, but,
No, I mean, this is good stuff. Yeah.
It kind of just, it reframed. And again, it's like the process we go through with patients is the process we go through with everything. meaning like you said, we got to find the next key and then we'll figure out what's in the next room. And you just do the next thing and the next thing. Mm-hmm. And many of us just get so, I don't know, big picture, or maybe we see this big wellness center, like we think we know what we want and we can't focus on what's right there in front of us and just tend to that. So when I started to do that, like I just started to relax, and I was like, I scaled it back because, I did cruise ships for 8 months. And when you're on the ship, one of the things they always said was like, you have a week to build your business, but if you screw it up, you can start again the next week. And right. Cause it was like, and so you started a business over and over and over and over again. And so, but even if you live on land, you can kind of do that. If you just on that week and you're like, okay, I've got the patient count I want, or maybe I want 3 more bookings. I'm going to try to email my list. And then you close that, and then you like start a new segment. And it was, I already, kind of knew how to do that, but I didn't think it applied on land, and it did. So that was the next door thing again.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned that whole thing about weeks, because it just made me realize that, as I've grown my business, everything I've always thought in terms of weeks.
Really?
I never realized that until now. Everything has been a week.
Yeah.
So it's just like, how many patients do I need per week to do this? How many patients, when I get this many patients per week, then I'm going to do this. Yes. When I get, and it's interesting how, and that's so true what you said about the cruise ship, and how it's like, hey, if you fuck it up this time, then don't worry. There's going to be a whole new bunch of people coming on the boat in 1 week, and you can try again. And it's so important, I think, to remind ourselves that. I think even in our clinics, we can just start over the next day. Yeah. It's like, well, today sucked. Well, let's just fix all that. We'll do a better job tomorrow.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.